Humans who were sacrificed for a building construction are believed to be able to make the building last longer than buildings in general. Sam, a young woman who recently graduated as an engineer, on the day of her birthday and graduation, Sam's father, who is the owner of a building demolition company, invites Sam to work at her family's company, and Sam is given her first assignment to tear down a unique apartment building on the outskirts of the city. If the project is successfully done by Sam, then her father will reward her with a vacation ticket around Europe for Sam and her boyfriend Peter. The next day, Sam immediately went into the field and arrived at a large apartment building, which has a very unique construction. The building was built in 1990 by an architect named Maelstrasse. There, Sam met an apartment manager named Mary, and also her son named Jimmy. Jimmy then tells Sam the rules in the apartment on the way to Sam's room in room 208, where Sam is forbidden to go up to the 8th floor of the apartment. When Sam was bathing in her room, she felt something strange in her room. She then walked around the apartment, and she met Mary. Sam is intrigued by Mary, when Mary asks Sam whether she knows the history of the building of the apartment, until Sam finally searched the internet when she was in a shop. As it turned out, the building maker, Maelstrasse, and 16 other people were found dead with hardened conditions inside the apartment walls, where the incident occurred in 1993. After Sam returned to the apartment, she marked the points to be fitted with dynamite. Suddenly a man came towards Sam with an axe, then she hit the wall that Sam had marked. It turned out that the man was one of the residents of the apartment, who did not accept the plan to demolish the apartment building. At night, Jimmy came to Sam's room to take her up to the 8th floor, and they arrived in the room where the body of Maelstrasse and 16 other people were found. Then Jimmy said to Sam, "From those victims, there is one little girl named Julie, who used to live in a room which has now been vacated." Besides that, it turns out that Jimmy's father was also one of the victims, when Jimmy was still in her mother's womb. After Sam saw the Maelstrasse picture on the wall, Jimmy scared Sam by playing his flashlight. Then someone suddenly appeared, and Jimmy spontaneously chased the man. Sam's flashlight suddenly went off, which made her very scared. She panicked and ran scared, until finally Sam fell. Luckily, Jimmy came back to Sam and took Sam out of the room. Because she got injured, Sam asks Jimmy to treat her, and because Sam is opening her pants, Jim looks for an opportunity to stroke Sam's thigh. Sam realized what Jimmy was doing. She then scolded Jimmy, and Jimmy became embarrassed and immediately left Sam's face. When Sam fell asleep, she had a nightmare, where she dreamed that if she was pulled into a room, then she was cast with cement in that room. Peter then came to visit Sam to the apartment. Sam then invited him to go up to the 8th floor secretly. Unintentionally, Sam sees a secret button on the wall, and after Sam presses it, a secret door opens. It turns out that in the room there is a glass, which is connected to the bathroom in Sam's room, which means that all this time Sam has been spied on by Jimmy from the room. After searching deeper, there is also a garbage disposal room, and from the end of the room, Mary suddenly appears and meets the two of them. Sam then reported that all this time Jimmy had peeked at her from the secret room earlier, and after experiencing bad things in the apartment, Sam's boyfriend tried to calm Sam, and he asked her to come home the next day. At that moment, they immediately have sex, and it turned out that Jimmy sadly heard their romance from outside Sam's room. The next day, Sam has managed to collect the data needed to execute the building. She prints all the documents of the report, and she will send it to the office. Before Sam left, Jimmy came to Sam's room to apologize, and he gave Sam a parcel, in which the contents of the parcel were a book containing the entire apartment building structure, which was written directly by Maelstrasse. After that, Jimmy invited Sam to go to the 8th floor, but strangely Jimmy suddenly disappeared, and suddenly Jimmy's voice asked for help, which sound came from a large hole. Sam then intends to go down into the hole to save Jimmy, while Peter stays on top to hold the rope. When Sam was in the hole, Peter was suddenly shot with a sharp object, which killed him instantly. Sam, who lost control, finally fell into the hole. Long story short, Sam woke up after passing out naked. It turns out that in the hole Sam is not alone. She is trapped with a man, in which the man is Maelstrasse, the architect of the unique apartment. All of that is the work of Jimmy, who was planning to lock Sam in that hole, with the aim that Sam could learn to love him. Jimmy sends the printed document to Sam's father's company. He also manipulates Sam, as if she didn't come back from the apartment because she was going on vacation with Peter. Jimmy orders Maelstraza strange things, such as telling him to kiss Sam, and stopping after being ordered by Jimmy. As a gift for obeying his orders, Jimmy gives a gift of food to Maelstraza, and a walkie-talkie to Sam. Sam uses the walkie-talkie to seduce Jimmy, so he wants to release her from that hole. Sam even takes off her clothes to make Jimmy tempted. However, Jim was not at all exposed to Sam's seduction. Then Maelstraza spoke to Sam. He said that he had been confined in that place for 5,000 days, and he also told her that he was confined there because of Mary's actions, who wanted to take revenge for the death of her husband, which had been used as a sacrifice for the apartment building project. Maelstraza did this because he believed that buildings built at the expense of humans will last much longer, as was done in the construction of pyramids in Egypt. Mary started to get suspicious because she didn't see Sam's whereabouts, so she went to the 8th floor to check the room where Maelstraza was locked up. And how angry Mary is with Jimmy, knowing that Sam is there too, because if the police find out, then both of them will be in danger. The next day the team from Sam's father's company arrived at the apartment building to demolish the building. They then went inside and started putting explosives at the points Sam had marked on her report. Knowing this, Sam backed to seduce Jimmy to release her, and she promises Jimmy that she will learn to love him. However, Maelstraza did not want Sam to come out of the hole. By tying Sam, she then dug a grave, from which the grave could release cementitious liquid. Maelstraza wants to sacrifice humans again, so that the apartment building doesn't collapse when it is detonated. Sam managed to untie the knots in her hands. She took a sharp object to stab Maelstraza. But Maelstraza did not fight. He instead asked Sam to stab him, because Maelstraza wanted to sacrifice himself. Sam is forced to do the orders of Maelstraza, and in a state of death, Maelstraza took the time to thank Sam for helping Maelstraza to make himself a sacrifice for his own masterpiece. Meanwhile, outside the building, the explosives team is counting down to blow up the building, but luckily Jimmy suddenly changed his mind, and he immediately ran into the building to save Sam. The explosion was cancelled. The team and Sam's father ran after Jimmy from behind. Arriving in the hole where Sam was, Sam's father was surprised to see his daughter who was in the hole. Jimmy then apologized to Sam's father, and he confessed all her actions in front of Sam's father. He then jumped into the hole. He fell right next to Sam. While dying, Jimmy apologized to Sam for what he had done to Sam. Jimmy finally died next to Sam, while Sam, who was still alive, was evacuated by a medical team who came to the location. Elsewhere, Mary was finally arrested by the police for the deeds she had done to Maelstraza and Sam. At the end of the story, it is told that the building was not blown up by Sam because of Sam's admiration for the genius of Maelstraza. And maybe this means that the myth of the sacrifice of a building project can make the building last longer is really proven.